The assassination that could have destroyed the Roman Empire, and almost did. March 15th, 44 BCE. Julius Caesar walks into the Senate. 23 senators surround him. 60 stab wounds later, the most powerful man in Rome is bleeding out on the floor. Everyone knows this story. But here's what they don't teach you. If Caesar had died 10 years earlier, before crossing the Rubicon, before conquering Gaul, before becoming dictator, Rome doesn't just lose a leader. It collapses entirely. The Republic tears itself apart. The empire never exists. And Western civilization as we know it never happens. Caesar's assassination came too late to stop what he'd already set in motion. But there was a moment when killing him would have changed everything. If you want to understand the single most fragile moment in Roman history, the point where one blade could have prevented an empire, subscribe now. Because this isn't about the assassination, you know. It's about the one that almost happened. And it would have destroyed Rome. The year is 52 BCE. Julius Caesar has been conquering Gaul for 6 years. He's won stunning victories. He's accumulated massive wealth. His legions are fanatically loyal, and Rome's Senate is terrified of him. Then everything goes wrong. A Gallic chieftain named Vercingetorix unites the Gallic tribes, something that's never happened before. He leads a coordinated rebellion against Roman rule. Caesar's forces are scattered, outnumbered, and cut off from supplies. At the Battle of Gergovia, Caesar suffers his first major defeat in Gaul. His reputation for invincibility shatters. Back in Rome, his political enemies see an opportunity. Marcus Cato and the Optimates, the conservative faction of the Senate, begin plotting. Not just political opposition, assassination. If Caesar dies in Gaul, fighting a rebellion he's losing, the Senate can recall his legions, install loyal commanders, and reassert control. The man who threatened to overthrow the Republic would be neutralized before he became unstoppable. This is the moment. The single point where Caesar is vulnerable enough to kill and weak enough that his death wouldn't trigger civil war. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE, he'd already transformed Rome. He'd crossed the Rubicon and defeated Pompey in civil war. He'd been declared dictator. His reforms were implemented. His veterans were settled across Italy. His adopted heir, Octavian, was positioned to inherit his power. Killing Caesar in 44 BCE didn't restore the Republic. It triggered another civil war that ended with Octavian becoming Augustus, the first emperor. The conspirators failed because they killed Caesar too late. The system he built survived him. But in 52 BCE, none of that existed yet. Caesar is just a general in Gaul with ambitious plans. If he dies there, his legions are reassigned. His wealth is seized by the Senate. His political faction, the Populares, loses its most capable leader. The Senate, controlled by Optimates like Cato and Cicero, remains dominant. Most critically, Pompey the Great, Caesar's rival, is still alive and undefeated. With Caesar dead, Pompey becomes the undisputed military strongman of Rome. And Pompey, unlike Caesar, respects the Senate's authority. The Republic survives. The empire never forms. Historical sources suggest that serious discussions occurred in Rome about having Caesar assassinated in Gaul. The mechanism was straightforward: bribe officers in his inner circle, or hire Gallic collaborators to kill him during the chaos of the rebellion. Why didn't it happen? First, logistics. Caesar was constantly moving with his legions. Getting an assassin close enough was difficult. His personal bodyguard, though small, was intensely loyal. Second, risk. If the assassination failed or was discovered, the Senate would face a wrathful Caesar with 6 battle-hardened legions at his command. The political cost of a failed assassination was catastrophic. Third, timing. Before the Senate could organize and execute a plot, Caesar did something extraordinary. He besieged Vercingetorix at Alesia, won one of history's most brilliant military victories, and crushed the Gallic rebellion completely. By the time the Senate's agents could have acted, Caesar was no longer vulnerable. He was victorious, and now he was coming home. Let's imagine the assassination succeeds. Caesar is killed during the retreat from Gergovia in 52 BCE, ambushed by hired Gallic warriors or poisoned by a corrupted officer. The immediate aftermath is chaotic. Caesar's legions lose cohesion without their commander. Some officers try to continue the campaign, but without Caesar's strategic genius, the Gallic rebellion spreads. Within months, Rome abandons significant portions of Gaul. Back in Rome, the Optimates consolidate power. Pompey is granted extraordinary authority to stabilize the situation. The Populares faction, leaderless, fractures. Figures like Mark Antony and Marcus Lepidus never rise to prominence because their patron is dead. Pompey, now the sole military strongman, doesn't march on Rome. He doesn't need to. The Senate voluntarily grants him power because he's the only figure capable of holding the Republic together. He becomes what historians call a princeps, first citizen, but governs through constitutional means, maintaining the Senate's dignity. The Republic survives in a form resembling its traditional structure, though with Pompey wielding disproportionate influence. Without Caesar's civil war, there's no precedent for military strongmen seizing absolute power. Pompey rules constitutionally until his death, likely around 50 BCE based on his historical age. After Pompey, Rome continues as a senatorial republic with rotating power among aristocratic families. There's no Augustus, no imperial system, no Pax Romana. This matters profoundly. The Roman Empire brought unprecedented political stability to the Mediterranean world for nearly 5 centuries. Roman law, infrastructure, and culture spread across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The empire's existence enabled the rise of Christianity, preserved Greek philosophy, and created the administrative framework that medieval European kingdoms inherited. Without the empire, that stability never exists. Instead, Rome remains one powerful republic among many competing states. Regional powers, Parthia in the east, Germanic tribes in the north, Carthaginian remnants in Africa, aren't conquered and pacified. They remain independent and hostile. The Mediterranean becomes a region of constant warfare rather than unified peace. Trade suffers. Cities don't grow to imperial scales. Cultural exchange happens more slowly. Here's the consequence nobody considers. Christianity likely doesn't become a world religion. In our timeline, Christianity spread through the Roman Empire's infrastructure: roads, cities, administrative networks. Roman citizenship and legal protections allowed Paul of Tarsus to travel safely across the Mediterranean. The empire's eventual adoption of Christianity under Constantine made it the dominant religion of Europe. Without the empire, Christianity remains a minor Jewish sect in Palestine. It might spread locally, but it doesn't have the imperial framework to become a universal religion. The religious landscape of Europe evolves completely differently, perhaps remaining predominantly pagan, or adopting different religious movements entirely. The cultural foundation of Western civilization, which is inseparable from Christianity's influence, never forms. By today, the world looks nothing like ours. Europe isn't a unified cultural bloc, with shared Roman legal traditions and Christian heritage. It's a patchwork of competing tribal kingdoms and city-states, more similar to ancient Greece than modern Europe. The concept of Europe as a unified civilization might not exist. Languages evolved from Latin, French, Spanish, Italian, Romanian never developed. The English language, heavily influenced by Latin through Norman conquest and Church Latin, would be unrecognizable or non-existent. The legal systems of modern Western nations, based on Roman law, develop along completely different lines. The political concepts of citizenship, representative government, and separation of powers, all influenced by Roman precedent, might never crystallize. Even the calendar we use is Roman. The months, the year structure, the dating system, all Roman innovations spread through the empire's reach. One assassination in 52 BCE, and none of this happens. Julius Caesar was nearly killed at the moment when his death would have mattered most. Not in 44 BCE, when the conspirators struck too late, but in 52 BCE, when he was vulnerable, embattled, and not yet indispensable. The Senate had motive. They had opportunity. They almost certainly discussed it. But they hesitated just long enough for Caesar to win at Alesia and make himself untouchable. That hesitation meant the Roman Empire would exist, that Christianity would spread, that Western civilization would develop along the trajectory we recognize. History doesn't feel fragile when you're living through it, but it is. One blade, one moment. Everything changes. Now I want to hear from you. If Caesar had been assassinated in 52 BCE and the Republic survived, do you think Rome would have been better off? Would Western civilization be stronger without the empire's authoritarian legacy? Or did we need that period of imperial unity to create the modern world? Drop your thoughts below. And if this made you realize how close we came to living in a completely different world, share this with someone who thinks history is inevitable. Because it never is. It's just one decision away from being something else entirely.